In a time period where we see 4- and 5-star quarterbacks transfer after a year or two when they lose a starting quarterback battle, Emory Jones did the opposite and stayed at Florida. It now looks like Jones will be the starting quarterback this year for the Florida Gators. But who is Emory Jones? In the Who Is series, we go through the backstories of up-and-coming collegiate and pro athletes. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and let me know who you want to see in future episodes. Emory Jones was born and raised in Franklin, Georgia, located about an hour southwest of Atlanta. At a young age, Jones knew how entrenched football was in his home state's identity and decided to attend Heard County High School in Franklin. When he was a freshman, he participated in a quarterback competition against a senior quarterback. Most of the time, a senior is expected to beat out a freshman at both the collegiate and high school level, but that did not stop Jones from winning the job right off the bat. Jones's high school coach Tim Barron said there was a senior who was a good high school player. Nothing against him, he was a really good high school player. But he wasn't Emory Jones. Jones struggled to manage expectations at first, but was able to turn it around and lead his team to the third round of the Georgia AA state playoffs. Throughout his high school career, Jones evolved into a high-level dual-threat quarterback and competed at the Elite 11 camp before his senior year. While at the camp, Jones impressed with his arm strength. During his senior year, Jones threw for 2,270 yards with 16 touchdowns while also rushing for 891 yards and 13 more touchdowns on the ground, making it his best year statistically. Jones finished his high school career with 7,250 total yards and 66 total touchdowns. He threw for 48 touchdowns and scored the remaining 18 on the ground. Jones would go on to play in the Under Armour All-American game, where he would struggle. According to 24/7 Sports Composite, Emory Jones was a 4-star recruit who was the 5th best dual-threat quarterback, 11th best player in Georgia, and 85th best player nationally. Jones received over 22 different Division I offers from the likes of Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Florida State, and Ohio State. According to The Athletic, Ohio State fell in love with Emory Jones and decided to try to get him to commit to become a future Buckeye. Jones would verbally commit as a sophomore, and many thought he would follow through with his commitment. All the time, we hear stories of players decommitting from schools after the schools bring in another player at a certain position. Usually, the recruit has been committed to the school for an extended period of time and stays loyal through the time period. But when they decommit, the player is usually vilified and is said to be running from competition. Jones decided to flip the script as a player. He was committed, but he still talked to other schools and took visits to the likes of Alabama and Auburn. As The Athletic says in the article, all is fair in love and recruiting. Ohio State did not start recruiting other quarterbacks immediately, but as time went on and visits continued, they needed to set up a plan B, C, and D. This caused Ohio State to get a little worried, and not wanting to miss out on a quarterback prospect, they decided to offer, at the time, 4-star recruit Adrian Martinez and 3-star recruit Matthew Baldwin. Ohio State was still on the table for Jones as he took an in-home visit with head coach Urban Meyer and quarterback coach Ryan Day a few weeks before the early signing period. Enter Dan Mullen. At the time, the newly hired head coach was looking for a quarterback and had missed out on the likes of Justin Fields, who committed to Georgia, and Matt Corral, who flipped to Ole Miss. Mullen had first interacted with Jones back in 2015 when he was still coaching at Mississippi State. Jones impressed at the Mississippi State camp and left with his first Power 5 offer. So, Jones took an official visit to Florida, which ultimately ended his relationship with Ohio State. The visit went well, but Jones continued to leave fans confused as he traveled to Tallahassee the following day. On signing day, Jones decided to commit to the Florida Gators over the likes of in-state rival Florida State and SEC rival Alabama. After Jones committed to Florida, Mullen told the Orlando Sentinel, "It's huge to get a quarterback, a guy that kind of ends up being a big leader for the class. As everyone looks at it, a leader for the future of the program. And we couldn't be happier to have Emory coming in and being our quarterback for the future." Hype for Jones increased due to the fact Jones played in a similar offense compared to the one Mullen runs. Jones spoke on his commitment saying, "When I made the decision, I was like, I'm going there. I want to win the starting spot. I want to be the face of the program. I want to be that guy. That's what I put myself into and is exactly what I wanted." Emory Jones decided to enroll early at Florida, and many wondered whether he would win the starting quarterback job as a true freshman. When Jones first got to Gainesville, Mullen wanted him to put on 15 pounds to handle the punishment from running the ball in the Gators' offense. Jones showed flashes of his talent during the orange and blue game, throwing for 2 touchdowns in the spring. The performance was not enough to win the starting job, as Feleipe was named the starter. Jones was actually named the 3rd string quarterback behind Kyle Trask. Jones made his debut in a win over Charleston Southern, where he recorded 3 rushes for -4 yards. Later in the season, Jones made an appearance against Georgia. He recorded 12 yards on 4 carries, but showed flashes of potential. He almost created a big play on a pitch that was tipped by the Georgia defensive end. The play resulted in a 7-yard loss, but had it been completed, there was a lot of open space. He also displayed his arm strength on a 50-yard bomb to Van Jefferson that fell incomplete in the end zone due to pass interference. Jones appeared in the game against Idaho, where he completed 12 of his 16 passes for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also rushing for 19 yards on 7 carries. Jones made his final appearance in Florida's blowout win over Michigan in the Peach Bowl, where he recorded 14 yards on the ground on 4 carries. Jones would utilize his red shirt during the season. The following year, Jones was once again the 3rd string quarterback, but slid into the backup role after starter Feleipe suffered a season-ending injury. Kyle Trask took over the starting role and played well. Jones finished the 2019 season throwing for 267 yards and 3 touchdowns, while also rushing for 256 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Franks would decide to transfer to Arkansas the following season, and some believe Jones would beat out Trask for the starting job. One article wrote that Trask did not have a high ceiling. Trask would go on to win the starting job and put up Heisman-level numbers, finishing 4th in the voting. Jones would be utilized in the run game, running for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns on 32 carries, while also throwing for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. After the season, Trask declared for the NFL draft, leaving Jones as the frontrunner for the starting quarterback spot for 2021. Jones will be the first quarterback recruited by Mullen to take over the starting spot if he wins the job. The offense will look to utilize the run more and probably will use Jones' athleticism more. Jones will need to hold off Anthony Richardson, a former 4-star quarterback from the 2020 class. Jones still has 3 years of eligibility left and could be a name to watch for the 2022 NFL Draft. I am personally excited to see what is next for Jones, who has sat and waited for his opportunity for this job. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos in the Who Is series. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, remember to embrace the grind.